All right, welcome to the fourth podcast episode of a Nebraska Gentleman. I'm your host, Nadu Izu Ebonam, or Chinedu Izu Ebonam. Today is Wednesday, October 31st. Right now it is 8:46 p.m. We did it right, everyone. We started it on an even number. My quote-unquote OCD is starting on even numbers, whether that be the volume, time, minutes ran on the treadmill, anything. So I'm a pretty happy guy right now. But again, this is a special episode, a Halloween edition, if you will. Usually I like to record on Sundays, but today was a special day, especially if you're a Red Sox fan. Well, my guest coming on in a little bit, who is one of the biggest Red Sox fans I know. He will be our special guest on the episode today. His boys in red, white, and blue won the series 4-1 for the ninth time, I believe, in franchise history. Dylan can probably confirm that in a little bit, but um, yeah, just so it's known too, the only National League baseball team to have won on that same stage since 2014 is my favorite team, the Chicago Cubs. But I digress. But we'll get my old college friend on here in a little bit to share his thoughts on the boys in Boston here very shortly. And I'll also ask him to explain a card workout that I partook in for the first time in maybe 2.5 months. I did it on Friday. It took me a while to do it again because of a knee injury I sustained in softball August 3rd. It was my first night back here on the East Coast. And playing softball, had a collision at the plate, really effed up my knee, couldn't walk for a week. Still only about 90%, so it's probably best I probably have that checked out, but another time, another day when I make more money, we'll see. But which also reminds me, unfortunately, the baseball season with the Red Sox winning on Sunday means the baseball season is over. And I'm sad. I'm sad. Obviously, the Cubs season was over at the beginning of October, which was very sad, but now that no team is playing is very, very, very sad. And these are the seasons now. I guess we'll have to pay attention to the Eagles. I guess they won the championship last year, so it's not so bad. And the Bulls, who may be promising, and the Bears, who may not be the best team again this year, but the future does look bright. And the Huskers are on a winning streak, so I guess that's something to be excited about. But I like to usually start off every episode with telling me something good, and I'll get Dylan's perspective later shortly as well. But one good thing that happened today, out of a bunch of things, actually, today was a great day. And what made it super great was that I had a post on Instagram sharing how I dressed up as a character from This Is Us called Randall Pearson, and I shaved in a style that I never really liked shaving, but you had to play the part. And apparently, my coworkers also thought I looked the same as him, so it worked, and it worked so much that Mr. Sterling K. Brown, the great actor that plays Randall, commented on my post and liked it, and also got NBC This Is Us account to like it too. So that was very special, and I was fangirling. I was so excited. It was a great time. It was a great moment in between clients to see that on my phone. You can check it out on the Instagram page, and share in the euphoria maybe that I felt today. Also, another special thing that's happened so far this week is as you know, on Sunday I shared that I'm starting a new diet this week, and I've already, from Sunday night to tonight, I've already lost about 5 pounds. I'm doing it healthily, but I'll expand more on that on Sunday's episode. But it feels good. I've been feeling very, like the word of the week, sanguine about it, which again, if you forgot, means an adjective used to describe someone who's optimistic or positive. So the example I used during Sunday was the mother is sanguine about her daughter's ability to begin walking without assistance. And I am sanguine about continuing this performance or whatever have you for the rest of the week. I'm eating intermittently. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that word correctly, but cutting off eating at a certain time and beginning eating on a certain time, and I'll share those times again on Sunday. But for now, I'm feeling good, feeling sanguine, and uh, yeah, I feel healthy. I am not as sore. I don't feel, I feel very rested when I wake up in the morning. I'm hungry, or I should say, I'm not as hungry waking up in the morning, which feels good. It feels really good. Or going to bed, which is my biggest difficulty. But again, we'll dive deeper into that on Sunday. But for now, I would like to bring on our special guest of the night. For the next half hour, this guy, he's an old grad buddy of mine from my first years in Massachusetts. He hails from a town just outside of Boston, which I know starts with the C, and I'm forgetting, so he might have to answer that. But he's a record holder on the diamond during his days at Union College, and he's a fan of a recent World Series championship team. He's my guy, and I believe he goes by Dylan Katz now, but as I like to call him, Dylon. So Dylan, my guy, how you doing, man?
What's going on, dude? Thanks for having me on. This is great.
It's
And
been a
up front, I just want to say that I heard you say this is the fourth episode, which I find great because this is the Red Sox fourth World Series win in the new millennium. So it couldn't be more perfect. So thank you for that.
I swear that people who are listening, I swear that was not on purpose. So don't get Dylan's head too big. But that's right. It was in 04, 07, 13, and then 18, right?
Correct. You nailed them.
Yeah, I always get it mixed up with 2011 and 13. I think 2011 was the Cardinals, but thankfully you beat them to break the curse in 04. So
Correct.
thank you for that as well. But Dylan, I'm doing a new segment where I called 5 and 10, where I like to shoot out 5 questions in 10 seconds. It's kind of like a this or that, and it's pretty self-explanatory. You choose between 2 options, and then we get on with the interview. Sound good?
Let's get after it.
All right, you got 10 seconds. So the first one, summer or winter?
Summer.
Wings, bone in or bone out?
Bone in.
Peanuts or peanut butter?
Peanut butter.
Red Sox blue or red jerseys?
Ooh. Red
Okay.
Sox blue. They just won.
All right, and last question. We're over the 10 seconds, by the way, but better day in your life, the 2004 World Series or your wedding day?
Oh, man. My wife would kill me if I didn't say wedding day. So the wedding day. But
Yeah, good answer. Good answer.
yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Don't overthink it. Just be happy with that answer. I think your wife will be too.
Yeah.
But so Dylan, how to inform our guests, let them know how we know each other.
Yeah, awesome. So Nadu and I met back at Springfield College in our master's program. We actually met, didn't we meet that March kind of as we were getting a feel for Springfield if we wanted to go to that program? I believe
That's right. It was in April, actually. I remember it was my first time out here. So,
Gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah, it was, we were just getting through a bitter, bitter winter. And so we met at grad school, had some great times, took some amazing classes, learned from some amazing professors. And yeah, I consider you one of my best friends there. And it was just an awesome time. I definitely miss those days. Obviously, now on in professional life, sometimes I wish I was back at school, but happy to have called you a classmate and a great friend.
Thank you, Dylan. I appreciate that. And yeah, you're right. During our days, we worked together often too, right? We had a couple teams that we co-led and did some great workshops, and even in class, we had some group workshops that we did that I still, keep with me to this day.
Yeah, I think we crushed it with one imagery workshop one time, and all credit to you. You really drove that one home. So nice work.
I mean, it takes two for the teamwork. So I kudos to you as well. And I want to share a memory that just came to mind. I'm glad you brought up that we met in April because I'll be honest, that's not what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I totally forgot. But what I was thinking too, besides AmeriCorps, was when I think it was for sure our first week of classes. I don't know if it was the first day or the middle of the week or Friday, but I remember. Do you remember Brennan Ward and Andrew Tosi, that jabroni?
Yep. Yep.
We all went to Plan B.
Plan
I
B,
think.
a burger shop at that, not a
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. But yeah, yeah, that was one quote unquote mutual friend, Andrew Tosi, that we'll have also on the show at a later date. He's currently my supervisor, so I won't talk too much crap about him now. I'll wait for the show. But definitely great memories there. We have great pictures. I remember we went to our first ASP conference together. I think that was in Indiana, or Indianapolis, I should say.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, I think we can spend all time talking about the memories, but really, what I want to do is put the focus on you, Dylan, for this episode. A lot of special things happening for you. I know you're married now for about a year or two. Is that right?
Coming up on the 2 year mark on New
New
Year's Eve.
Year's.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
Wow. Do
I
you
know.
feel any different?
I mean, definitely getting settled into married life. We're having a great time. She's unfortunately been traveling a lot for work, so that's tough. But I guess right now I don't feel any different. But I would say it is a good feeling to be married and kind of be settling down, both having jobs, going about the dailiness of that, and uh, I guess the difference is being away from people, friends, family, people I really care about. So that's the
Yeah,
downside.
I hear you. And not even being married, I'm starting to get that with work and figuring out how, as much as you want to catch up with people, life just gets in the way. And when you come home, you kind of just want to clear your head and settle down. So
Yeah.
this is why I find this podcast moments like this, I cherish it more because it's just so few and far between now.
Yeah.
But on top of that, I would like to learn, and I'd like our listeners to learn too. What are you doing these days, Dylan? I know you're in the South now. I don't hear an accent quite yet, but how is the South treating you, and what are you doing down there? Where
Uh,
are you? Let's start there.
so I'm currently down in Columbia, South Carolina,
Okay.
capital of South Carolina, right where the University of South Carolina is. So go Cox.
You
You know,
become a fan now, huh?
I was gonna say, being from the Northeast, we have riches in our professional teams, but not the. I mean, I shouldn't say that, but there aren't as many college teams that people follow up there. So I
Yeah.
feel like just living here makes me a Cox fan. Yeah, so I'm down here, and I'm currently working as a federal contractor with the military, teaching mental skills. So actually taking what we learned in grad school through our sports psych and athletic counseling program and delivering those to service members. So I'll be teaching certain classes that cover some of the skills, self-talk, arousal regulation, imagery, a lot of the things that we learned about in school. But I'll also get to go out in the field with them sometimes and help them apply those skills. So it's not just classroom instruction, but actually, they're out there, they're dealing with stress and anxiety, and maybe we can work through some sort of breathing technique that helps them with that. So I'm loving it. It's been an ideal transition for me from grad school. I think it's also pretty cool and pretty important to use the skills that we learned with a different population than just athletes. I mean, I love working with athletes. I love working around sports, but it is eye-opening to see these skills being used in another domain. So that's been really awesome to be a part of and to help people out and deliver that. And then icing on the cake is that my wife is also she is active duty in the military, and that's why we ended up down here in South Carolina. So we actually work on posts together, and can every once in a while, if she ever has time, we can grab some lunch and kind of enjoy that. So it's been a really great transition so far.
You're living the dream, Dylan, working so close to your wife, and then what you
Yeah,
said too on the, you know, you enjoyed working with athletes, but it's a different population. I think, would you agree that regardless, it's still about performance, and that's where you can kind of connect your work with athletes and now with the military?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, at the end of the day, those skills that we've learned can be used across the board and can be used with many performers. And
Exactly.
whether you are on the field or you are in a military setting or you're a musician, these skills can be used across the board. So I think that's exactly right. With
Yeah.
those performances.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's what I try and tell clients today. I work with substance and mental health. Like, whatever you're really doing, if you think about it, you're performing. Like you said, a musician's a great example. A teacher is a great example. Even what we're doing right now on this on this podcast, there's a skill that can be built on every time I'm out here talking to my phone, or even when you're, teaching teaching a group of guys and women and men. So my question for you, Dylan, is what, if you have one, would be a favorite skill that you just every time you're about to teach it, you just get excited, you feel it in your veins, and it's like, yes, this is my topic, this is the one I really enjoy kind of teaching others more than anything else.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I think my stock answer for that, the thing that I always end up coming back to is imagery, using mental imagery. I actually taught a class on that today. And one thing that's interesting is it's kind of a difficult skill to learn,
It
especially,
is.
I mean, for us, obviously, but also people that have never really done it before, never even heard of imagery or visualization. Um, I think it can scare them off at sometimes, at some points. So it's important to go slow and trust the process and just work your way through it and learn that. But I don't know. I think I just really like it because I can almost go back to my own playing days when I played college baseball and try to imagine myself, before games, closing my eyes, trying to imagine myself out there at shortstop, seeing a ball come to me, how I was going to react, what I wanted to be saying to myself in that moment, and how to then actually, deliver the goods, execute the throw to first. So, uh, but on top of that, I could have used it a lot more, and it could have really helped me become a better fielder, hitter, or whatnot. So, what I learned in grad school, I wish I had more of those skills back when I was playing. But I really like taking those and being able to teach others here in the military and use that to their advantage and benefit when they're doing performances.
Yeah, it's kind of like an if I knew then what I know now type of thing. But it
Yeah.
sounds like that's kind of fueled you to kind of teach them uh, properly and better too. And I really hear the passion you have for imagery. And I think when you relate to it, like you just said, playing baseball back in your day and how you wish you had it, I think it makes it easier and more enjoyable to teach.
Yeah.
So you explained an example of what imagery is, but kind of like the elevator pitch that we had in class, how would you, if I was stepped in an elevator right now with you and I just listened to this podcast, I see you in person, like, hey, Dylan, you're the guy on the podcast, the most famous podcast in the world. I heard you talk about imagery. Can you explain what that is? And then go. How would you explain it to,
Wow.
an amateur or somebody that's willing or really wanting to learn how to either teach it or just enhance their imagery?
Yeah, that's a great question and great for putting me on the spot. I
I
like that.
got you, man. I
I
got you.
like it. I like setting me up. So we're standing in an elevator. I would, assuming that's not too creepy that I just start talking, I would probably, I would probably just ask you, okay, what type of performance do you have coming up that's on your mind or you're thinking about? Any sort of performance. So first off, I want to hear from that person what they're dealing with, so I don't just start talking off the cuff on something. So
Ooh, what a way there. What a delivery. I like
yeah,
that.
so making it personable and
Yes.
relatable to them. So asking them what
Yes.
performance they have, and then when they give me whatever it is, you know, for the sake of this podcast, let's just say they have a baseball game coming up. So then I would tell them, okay, close your eyes or just try to focus in on one moment of that game. So let's say they're thinking about hitting. I would have them actually think about standing there in the box, looking down at third base, getting the signs from the third base coach, feeling the ground beneath their feet, feeling this hot sun on their face, hearing the chants from the crowd, assuming they have a crowd. At Union, we only had like 300 people come out. If that was like max. I shouldn't even say 300.
Hey, don't hate on those 300 people though. They came there, man. They
That's right.
supported
They
it.
came, they saw, they conquered. So, anyways, I would try to give them a moment to really think about putting themselves in this performance, but creating it as vivid as possible. So, trying to use all five senses, not just seeing, but obviously hearing, feeling, taste, smell, even trying to make it as vivid as possible, and just kind of looking around in that moment, trying to recognize what's going on. See what is all around and hear what's all around, and just put themselves in that moment. Then bring them back and have them describe that to me, but then talk forward about, okay, the use of imagery is being able to get yourself into that moment, into that zone, whatever you may be, and then seeing yourself successfully completing that task of the performance, whatever you want to have happen. So I'd have to, if we're talking about hitting, I'd want them to think about, okay, you see the ball come in and you hit it exactly where you want it to be. So that would be kind of like my little intro to imagery. Now, a side piece to that is obviously when using imagery, and if you have a lot of time before the performance, you can see how maybe things go wrong and how you would fix them or how you would change your path. But a lot of times if you're doing imagery right before a performance, you want to see yourself successfully completing that.
Yeah, that's right, Dylan. And I think, like, regardless of how much time you put into it, that key that you just said at the end is the important thing is making sure that you do see yourself successful, but also priming yourself for things are to come. How can I either bounce back from it or deal with it when they do come? Kind of priming the mind for positive thinking or ways to kind of increase that resilience and focus. So yeah, Dylan, that was great. And I think that right there, you just not answering with a definition is an example of why, one of 100 examples why that you were one of the best in our cohort and most liked and very popular, because your way of thinking and the way you're able to use what you've learned is just so, for lack of a better word, incredible and special. And that's where I think where you're at today. And just to clarify, how long have you been at this current job?
Actually, just about I think it's about a year and 2 months. So was that 14 months or so? So finally, getting into the swing of teaching all the different units and everything. I mean, I've been teaching them for a while, but finally starting to feel, more and more comfortable delivering that content to that population. So yeah, it's been great and I'm loving it and really enjoy going to work every day and seeing what that day is going to bring.
Yeah, that's one thing I remember from our Mr. Littlefoot,
Yep.
Dr. Al Pettypaw, teaching us how important it is to find a job that we want to be at, not have to be at, but really want and enjoy. And I'm proud and glad that you found that. So my last question for you, well, second to last, what is an average class size for you? And how long did it take you to really feel confident and really ease that nervousness teaching a big or small size group of people?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we work with a handful of different units. So the largest class that I'll be teaching at a time is about 260.
Oh my gosh, by yourself?
Yeah, by myself. So
Oh man.
yeah, so that is extreme in itself, but it's crazy because the first time it happens, you're like, oh my God, there's so many people. But I've
Yeah, I
done,
want to hear the true feelings. So yes, the first time you were like nervous.
yeah.
What
So
else?
the first time was definitely feeling nervous. When I get nervous, I definitely get that shakiness. Kind of can't stop myself from jittering, those shaky arms or shaky legs.
Shaky
Uh,
throat.
yeah, shaky throat. And I'm such a pacer. Like I won't be able to sit still. I'll like pace back and forth. I'll get to, I think I got to the room like friggin' 45 minutes early, and like making sure that everything was in line, everything was set up. But at that time, oh, there's my wife calling me in. Um, yeah, I'll tell her that. I'll tell her we have more important things going on.
Okay.
But
This is live, people. There's no editing this.
no editing at all. So yeah, so I was feeling those nerves, feeling that shakiness, pacing around. Um, but the first class went great. And I mean, kind of what I was getting at with that point is even though I was nervous and whatnot, I was still able to fall back on I knew this content. I
Yeah.
know what I'm talking about and can relate and learn from each session, right? I mean, not every session goes perfectly, but I knew that there would be a lot more sessions going on. So I mean, I've taught that many people so many times now that the number doesn't necessarily phase me, but I really just try to learn from each session and like pick out things that they're telling me and they're saying. Obviously, I mean, I haven't been in the military, so sometimes there's that where I try to get a lot of information from them and hear their perspective because I'm a guy coming in who doesn't have military experience, so I don't want to just say something that totally doesn't make sense. Uh, but yeah, I mean, other classes I'll teach are around 100 down to 70, and then we teach another in another population where sometimes it's just like 20 of them or 40 of them. So it definitely ranges, but the primary population I work with, it is usually over 200 of them at a time.
Okay. And I think one thing you said that really stuck with me was that when you were feeling, kind of nervous and like, oh shoot, like what's gonna happen? I'm here, prepared for 45 minutes, and now it's time. I might get nervous. I think if there's one thing I try and teach students or any client is that especially with anxiety, is how much of a big difference it makes when you are prepared. Because when you're more prepared for something, the confidence is there. The lack of preparation or the lack of knowledge towards something, of course, it makes sense if you feel nervous, and because you're not sure, you're going to start second guessing if the crowd thinks you're BSing them, telling the truth, if you really know what you're talking about. But like you said, you believed with what you prepared for, and that helped. And you also use every experience as a learning lesson, which is something I remember being taught in our
Yeah.
days together in the program. So my last question, Dylan, for you before we move on will be somebody that's looking to be in your field, work with the military, work with a big crowd or just a different population, in general, outside of athletes or any field that revolves performance. What would be a tip that you would suggest, either the steps to get there or really anything?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, I think the first question that I would ask them is, so why do you want to work with the military and not athletes? And the reason why I would is because during my interview, that question was asked of me, and it almost, I should have assumed that question was coming, but it almost stopped me and had me think, okay, what value are these skills or am I going to bring to somebody that's not in that sport domain?
Hmm.
Uh, and why am I choosing working with the military versus working with the athletes right now? And some people might have a more stock answer to, well, it's the type of job that's available or most sought after right out of grad school. But at the end of the day, I think it's really helpful to have a great reason, a great why behind why you want to work with people in the military. And maybe growing up you had family tradition or ties to the military, people in your family that did it, or you really think that they would benefit from learning about these skills and knowing all the stressors and anxiety that people in the military go through. Probably, I don't want to say more so, but across the board, probably more so than athletes. They're definitely very helpful skills to know. So that would be the first thing I'd say. Um, but honestly, just telling them as a tip, dive right in. Actually, look for the positions. There are positions open. Dive right in. Type in um, our work along with the military, and things are going to pop up. And just do it. I know that sounds kind of cliche because Nike made it cliche, but just getting yourself into it and not worrying about, like, is this going to bring me to a different place that I don't necessarily want to go? I tried to take that approach of, well, this is going to give me a lot of opportunities in our field. It's going to expand my tool belt, if you will. And I'm going to have the chance of maybe traveling around a little bit more than if I decide to stay in the Northeast, the home of the greatest professional sports teams of all time.
I'm just gonna plug that in there. I like that. Nice slide.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess those would be my like initial pieces of advice. Really understand why you'd want to be working with the military, but then just going after it and seeing what's going to happen and seeing all the opportunities that are out there for them.
All right, thank you, Dylan.
Yeah.
And great segue into the main discussion
Mhm.
that I want to talk about, which I'm sure you are looking forward to talking about too. But let's talk about them boys at Fenway Park. So,
Back.
as you know, but in case some people are not baseball aficionados like us and really can care less about baseball, Dylan's favorite team won the World Series for the ninth time, I believe, in their franchise. They won it Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
and it really, in group therapy the other day, a client, which I had to stop myself from really laughing because it was so true that there's a lot of Yankees fans in this group too, and one shared that there wasn't even competition really. The Red Sox just took over, and I missed the game they lost, which I believe was Game 4. Oh, no, Game 3.
Yep.
Yeah, Game 3 that went apparently into 3 a.m. on Saturday morning.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and apparently they could have won that one if there was an error. They're up 2-1, I believe, in extra innings, and then Dodgers came back, and then I believe their first baseman, I'm forgetting his last name right now, but apparently he hit a home run.
Months,
And
right?
yeah, Muncy, that's right. But other than that, especially watching games 1 and 2, there really did not seem to be too much competition, especially near the end. They seemed to really secure games by that seventh, sixth inning. Bullpen was lights out. That's just from a non-Red Sox fan perspective, although they're our sister team, being a Chicago Cubs fan.
Right.
I would like to just hear, Dylan, your experience and hear your reflection on this series, the postseason in general, and the season. Did the parade was this morning, I believe. Did you go on a bender?
Parade was
Were you?
today, and unfortunately, being how many ever miles away I am, 1,500, I did not go on a bender. I was hard at work, thinking and wishing that I was at the parade, but obviously, social media allows us to see so many people there, so that
Yes.
was cool to live through that.
Did you know anybody there?
At the parade? Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
at the parade or even the night of when they won Game 5 to clinch and win it all.
So I definitely knew a ton of people that were at the parade because a lot of my friends are living in Boston, so it's easy for them just to go down to the parade route.
Yeah.
And I had a friend, we haven't talked in a long, long time, but a friend from high school who I was seeing through social media that he was there at the game. He was actually at both games, or I guess I should say all three games at Dodger Stadium,
Wow.
and ended up, I don't know if he works for the team or he has some sort of close ties because some of his pictures were down on the field after with the trophy. So something amazing. Um, but also on a first note, I know this is a podcast, but if you could see me, I am wearing a beautiful Red Sox t-shirt right now. And to top it all off, it's my Leicester t-shirt. So a little
Connection. I love it.
little love for you, a little love for the Cubbies. So, you gotta represent, gotta talk about it when you can't actually see the shirt.
Well, so I'm gonna put you on the spot right now and ask you if you would like to send that to me after, and I can make that the photo for this podcast, or put it in the comments section. Because I'm
Yeah.
thinking of using the photo from Asp that of me and you. I like to, on the cover of these podcasts, put a photo of me and the guest. But yeah, that one might give me a run for my money. I'll
Yeah.
have to see it.
Perfect. Yeah. So we'll do that. We'll make that happen. But
So you
to,
got to live through your friends though today.
got to live through the friends. Yeah. And it's funny. We are, I should say the city of Boston is definitely an embarrassment of riches when it comes to professional teams, but also professional team championships. So, uh, whereas your Cubs, when they won, it's like this spectacle, and all eyes are on the parade and everything after. I'm not saying that's not what it was like, but since this is the fourth championship, and the last one happened, the fourth one since the turn of the century.
Keep bragging about it. We hear you. We hear you.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. I definitely get your point.
really just dragging this out so your followers know how much of a Boston fan I am. But
You really are.
yeah, but my point being, like, I truthfully haven't looked as much into the parade today as I probably could have. But on that note, I followed the team all year. Being down here in South Carolina, we don't have I couldn't get Nesson, so I bought the MLB TV to kind of line up and be able to watch many of the games.
Was it worth it?
Totally worth it. I mean, obviously it's easy to say that in hindsight, but it definitely was worth it. I knew being away from up there, I wanted to keep my ties, and the Sox are my favorite team, and by far. I mean, obviously I follow all the other major teams, but the Sox have that special place in my heart, so it was totally worth it. And then I didn't miss many innings of the entire postseason. I'll tell you that. And I think I watched almost every single inning of the World Series, besides the ones that I was dozing off for because I'd been up early, and every game was started at 8:00 Eastern time.
So I was just gonna ask, Dylan, are you East Coast in South Carolina?
Yep. So I'm
Okay.
East Coast over here, which sometimes makes watching those late games a little more difficult, especially when you got to get up early for a job. But you can't rest when the World Series are on. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it brings out a different beast, and not just the players, but the fans too.
Yeah.
So at least now you know how I feel when I moved out here to the East Coast and had to get used to the Cubs always playing at 8 p.m. instead of 7.
Exactly.
But hey, it was definitely worth it for you. So is there anything you want to reflect on the season itself? I really wanted to go from the outfield to the infield to pitching, but
Right.
anywhere you specifically want to focus, because Price, I mean, he really turned it around, huh?
Price turned it around. Price, I mean, probably a lot of people do know this, but especially in Boston, people knew that Price was one of the enemies when he was in Tampa Bay. He had that whole
Him and Ortiz.
him and Ortiz had that kerfuffle, and it just became this huge drama. And then when we signed him and he came here, it was he wasn't really on people's great sides. This was his moment. This was his party, and obviously he let the media hear it after the game, saying that he holds the cards now, and it couldn't feel any better. But I think he won over a ton of Red Sox fans, myself included, with his performances here, and not even just his performance on the field, but like the move that he did after the 18 inning game where Nathan Eovaldi, who was a midseason pickup,
Tampa. Yep.
yeah, Tampa, he honestly, I was saying to myself after the game, like, right now, Eovaldi is the MVP of our team, because from that, I forget what inning he came in, but he pitched 6 or 7 innings and basically kept us alive while we were faltering at the plate. Like, it looked like nobody was having great at bats except for maybe Vasquez. But after he gave up that winning home run to Muncy and was walking off the field, you knew he was pissed. You could see it. Price just grabbed him around the shoulders, walked him down into the dugout, into the clubhouse, and reports came out that he was just with him all through that post game and even onto the bus and throughout the night. Just wanted to be by his side, telling him, hey, how freaking great he pitched, how he should keep his head up, and just didn't want him to be by himself, because you can imagine how hard someone would take that loss after going 18 innings and 7 hours of baseball. So just Price's character, I think, came through a lot. So that was huge. But I mean, overall reflection on the season, you rarely see a team that is arguably the best team throughout the entire season from the beginning. Even they had the best record coming out of spring training, and then they were just basically on top the whole way through. In a season where there were 2 other teams, the Astros and the Yankees, with over 100 wins.
Which is crazy, Dylan. I mean, the thought of having 3 teams in one league, 100 wins. Like, I think it's happened before, but especially in the same division. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and
Like,
yeah, amazing. And it made baseball better. It also made getting through the AL seem like this giant task. And then I think once they made it past the Yankees and past the Astros seemingly easily, like I assumed one, I'm a pretty cynical Red Sox fan, so the whole time I was like, well, we're gonna lose to the Astros, like it's gonna happen.
but
And
Dylan, look at your past years in the playoffs. You have a reason to because of how quick you guys were out.
exactly, and just how a lot of people in Boston are, especially before '04. They had the 86-year drought, so it's just like almost built into the blood that you just don't. You think something's gonna go wrong, or you're
I
putting up.
think I know how that feels. Yeah.
Yeah, you're putting up those that defensiveness early, so you don't feel as bad when it actually happens.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I just couldn't believe that they made it through the Astros that quickly. And so then when the Dodgers were on the doorstep, everybody, I don't want to speak for everybody, but we were like, all right, like no big deal. Um,
And look what happened. You were right.
yeah, and then you take the first two games in Boston. It's like, wow. But it did definitely, the momentum did shift with that 18-inning game, and then especially game 4 where we were down after that huge home run, 4-0, and it was in the 7th. You're like, oh, this could go to 2-2 real quick here. But yeah, I mean, amazing team, amazing camaraderie on their team, which I think is the reason why they made it this far, and usually what brings a team all the way to the end. And all the thanks to Alex Cora for that. He's one of the best coaches in the league, and I hope that he'll stay with the Red Sox for a long, long time since this was his rookie season.
Yeah, I think he's deserving a manager of the year. And it's funny you mentioned him because I was going to ask you your thoughts on him because he seems like a well-rounded individual. Great coach, seems to be well liked by players, especially because age-wise, he's not too far from them.
Yeah.
Seems relatable. And also off the field, he just seems like a great humanitarian. I mean, he wanted to take the trophy, I believe he said, on the field to Miami.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know this or can clarify for me that there was something in his contract when he signed to have deliveries, like special help delivered to Puerto Rico.
Yeah. So
during the hurricane.
Exactly. That was the first thing he wanted when he signed that. He said, I want, goods to be delivered to the survivors on Puerto Rico from Hurricane Maria. Yeah, which is amazing. And actually, yeah, he wanted, not to Miami, but he wanted the trophy to be brought to Puerto Rico. And it was funny seeing like John Henry on stage, like, oh yeah, absolutely, that's gonna happen.
Well, I remember watching the video and he said Miami, so that caught me off guard. I don't know if Miami was like the way he wants to go through it to Puerto Rico, but the first stop
could be it. And I mean, I think he's amazing. He's kind of he's proven that he's this one of the modern day Roberto Clementes, right?
100%. Good connection there.
Yeah, not just a player, not just a coach, but really just trying to do better for the world, which is, all the respect goes out to him. You can tell he's a great guy and a great coach. And he had obviously a lot of pieces to play too, but he had to make some big decisions. And like overall, do you want me to run through like what I think about the team, or?
I'd love it. As much time as you have, Dylan, I'd love to hear really your full perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like outfielder wise, I don't think there's a better outfield collectively in the league. And hopefully, granted, on the World Series stage, Mookie was kind of faltering at bat, but it is what it is. I think he's going to win MVP. But just the defensiveness, or how good they are on defense, Mookie, JBJ, who was a South Carolina product, and Andrew Benintendi. It's rare for a ball to fall in that outfield. They're so athletic, they're so good, and they're so young, which is the exciting part. And then to add on top, the fourth outfielder who played DH for most of the season since we're in the AL, JD Martinez. I mean, you don't see that coming too often. So I think overall, one thing before I move on to the infield, but like overall, the Red Sox have always had a really great farm system and bring up and mold these really great players. But Dombrowski's come in and obviously gotten big pieces to add to the puzzle to make it all happen. So it's cool to see. And obviously it's lucky to have that much money to do it, I guess, if you want to say that.
So, well, yeah, I mean, especially with these young guys, that's where you have the money too, because they haven't hit their paydays yet, so they're still under control. But
Yeah.
my question to you, I'm going to put you on the spot again.
Yeah.
I'm going to propose you a deal. You say yay or nay, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the Cubs looking for a leadoff bet, looking for to give up a couple young guys, Schwarber and Almora,
Yeah.
for Jackie Bradley and is it Avaldo? Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Vivaldi.
Avaldi, yeah, from the Red Sox. So I'm going to plead my case, and you tell me what you think about it and if you would accept or not. So we give you Schwarber, you guys get a DH, a monster, and cranking it. He hits Oppo, so you got the monster that he can hit out of, and also that right field line with that unique, for lack of a better word, pull. And then you have a guy now, Albert Amora, who I believe is only 24 years old, young product from Florida, great human being, lays out for anything, similar to Jackie Bradley Jr. I compare him, I call him the NL version of Jackie. A slightly better hitter too, walks less, but can make contact and just goes all out. He gets pumped. He's a guy. He's a baseball guy. We get in return Jackie Bradley Jr. We get a leadoff hitter too, and we get a guy who can provide us some insurance as a number 5 starter behind Lester, Hamels, Hendricks, and Quintana. Do you accept that and think it's a fair deal, or are you looking for more, or would you never want to send Jackie?
So it's a great question, and I feel like, well, you didn't do that exact trade midseason, but you definitely sent some sort of offer like that over text to me, and I laughed in your face.
Well, think about it this way: Jackie doesn't hit really for average.
No,
So,
yeah,
are you saying that you love him that much for his fielding? Is what I'm
no,
hearing.
no. So what I was getting at is definitely a fair deal. I would, if I was Nebraska, or if I was the Red Sox, I'd probably think about that deal and actually weigh it pretty heavily. The one thing though, so yeah, if that deal happened, you'd assume that JD would then move. Oh no, JD wouldn't have to move to the outfield because Almora, was it Almora?
So you got Amor in center, and then I wonder if you can move Benintendi or Mookie to center. Then Schwarber can actually play the outfield if you wanted him to.
But then but so then my point being is because of JD, so we have
Oh yeah, that's right.
JD, and honestly, I would take JD over Schwarber. Not saying that Schwarber wouldn't help, but my point being is as JD gets older and older, he just becomes more and more of a DH. I feel like.
That's a good point. I
But
forgot about JD, to be
yeah,
honest.
it's definitely a fair deal, and I've thought. I mean, I love Jackie Bradley, but he is inconsistent at the plate every now and then. He comes and he goes. But I've been saying over this year, like if there was one outfielder that we'd have to trade away, it would probably be him. I mean, he was making amazing plays out in the field, and the fact that a lot of times we had him in our 9 spot, he was like that perfect second leadoff and just
Very
got the
good point.
ball rolling again. So I mean, it's a fair deal, and we can talk more about it off this live podcast here.
Well, that and we have a full off season, so I highly doubt if you're okay with it, this won't be your last podcast on the show.
Yeah,
Last
absolutely.
appearance.
But
But yeah, I think I mean if you want, you have the floor to go on with the infield and pitching. We've covered a lot, so it's up to you. I'm not gonna pigeonhole you, but I guess my biggest question would be where does this rank in terms of the 4 championship teams since 2004? What team? Because John Smoltz, or as the biz calls him, Smoltzy, he said this is one of the best put together teams he's seen in a long time, and it's hard to argue that.
yeah. So okay, so to answer that question, and I'm not going to go through the whole team before. I'll just touch on like the bullpen aspect of it. But so to answer that question, so I think I would agree with Smoltz that probably if you look at 04, 07, 13, and 18, this is the most complete team out of those 4, and the best team out of those 4. Um,
I think I know where you're going with this.
what I was gonna say is talking about my favorite then, and thinking about okay, well they each had their own amazing amazing part. I mean, '04 breaking the curse, as you know, as a Cubs fan, like that team will hold a special spot forever.
Forever. Yeah.
Um, and '07 was again this dominant team. I guess for me, I just part of it was that it was like nearing the end of my high school career. I was within the depths of baseball. I was playing baseball all the time, so I was just so locked into it. And I was older than obviously I was older than in '04, but a little more able to appreciate it. I would say my favorite team out of those four was the 13 squad. I love,
Ooh.
yeah, I loved them. First of all, I had just graduated from college, kind of was getting back into Boston, so I was actually able to like go out, have a great time in Boston, and watch those games there. So that was amazing. Uh, it was the one and only postseason game I've ever been to. It was actually World Series Game One. Uh, yeah, Mike Napoli hit a freaking like I ripped a 3-run double, I think it was in the first inning, and I don't think I've ever been screaming louder. So with that being said, but I loved their beards, I loved their camaraderie, loved Johnny Gomes. He was like Johnny Gomes was like the Steve Pierce of 2013, but he didn't win the MVP. But he was just kind of like that rallier. He got the team going no matter how down you were.
Such a big presence for sure. Yep.
Yeah, huge presence. And I don't know what it was about it. I just felt like so attached to that team. And that was I was able to go to that parade, which was awesome. I also loved Koji Uehara,
I
who
was
was
just gonna say another Cubs connection was on that team,
yeah,
and David Ross, I believe.
he like brought this like funny life to the team. And so yeah, I guess best team out of those four, 2018, I'd say. Just so talented, and obviously the wins show that. But my favorite team, and this is just a personal, individual thing, 2013, and this is kind of this like that Koji piece almost segues into me just chatting briefly about the bullpen of this year. And that was the big question mark all year. And when Nebraska really didn't make any big change at the trade deadline um, for the bullpen, we were all like, "What is going on? Like that's the only thing we need right now, and we're not doing that." And I guess his philosophy worked because he said, "Well, we'll just have some starters like Evaldi and these people, and they'll pitch almost as relievers in the playoffs, and that'll work." So clearly the plan worked, and I should have trusted the process. But I will tell you, even though if you just saw the box scores and you just saw the results, you'd think that the Red Sox steamrolled their way, which they did a good job. But it was nerve-wracking to watch. I will say Craig Kimbrell in the playoffs.
Oh
He
my gosh.
he was not, and I felt kind of like that from the All-Star game on. Like he didn't have as great command as he once did, and in the playoffs when the pressure was on, like he was a walking heart attack personally for me. And I would sit here and like be like my hands were on my head. I was like,
What's he
just
gonna do today?
a strike. And it's like walking people, hitting people, giving up runs. I think like the first 4 or 5 games he appeared in, he gave up at least a run every single game. So I was having these flashbacks to Koji was pitching like high 80s, low 90s, but with like this crazy movement and just sitting people down. And Kimbrell's pitching high 90s, touching 100, and people. I mean, he just didn't have the command. It really goes to show that because there's so many pitchers in the league these days that can touch those numbers. It comes down to throwing strikes, having command, and maybe having a more elusive pitch as a closer.
Mhm.
Um, but on that final note with the bullpen, that was our shakiest piece, and then in the playoffs, bullpen wide, uh, they really locked it down. Joe Kelly, amazing. Um, it was just like it was a breath of fresh air to watch them be able to actually execute what they wanted to. So yeah,
Yeah,
that
again, trusting the process, like you said, and it's funny because you guys made bullpen moves last postseason, and then this season, like you said, it worked with Evaldi, and I believe you had Porcello at times coming out from the bullpen too.
Yeah, yeah, he came through when we needed to. Obviously, Chris Sale.
Oh, I bet you, man, when I saw that, I was like, oh, the Red Sox really want to, win here in LA. They do not want to bring it home.
And yeah, and they did that against the Astros too, didn't they? He was used again in another game. So that's one thing that I really liked about Cora, the win now philosophy. Not leaving things up to chance, but when you have the opportunity, you're going to throw your best pitcher. I think everybody can agree that the Red Sox best pitcher this year is Chris Sale. Um, so yeah,
Yeah,
why not close out the World Series with him? He started it. He threw the first pitch 2018 and the last pitch.
I did not know that. Wow. Oh, yeah, he was the opening day starter. You're right.
Yeah.
No belly button issues in Game 5, so that was good to hear.
um,
So, Dylan, I got to say, though, that was an interesting. I did not think you'd go that route, and I love hearing stuff like that when you're not predictable because I knew that you would. I thought you would agree with that 18 collectively was a great team on and off the field and on and off paper. But I definitely thought you were going to go with the 2014 because of how, like you said, how that first team that breaks the curse. So the 16 Cubs, the 04 Red Sox always hold a special place in your heart. But I love the perspective that you put with the 13 and
yeah,
how it makes a big difference too when you're able to kind of be out and independent again and really enjoy it in your your young 20s or mid 20s and really remember it more.
I think that's probably the biggest factor because I mean I loved why not us and the idiots of '04, but I think it really did come down to me being an early teenager, young teenager versus me being out of college and just my own personal experience and really diving into the games. But yeah, I mean, if I had the chance of watching the '04 team again, I'm sure I'd love them just as much.
And what I'm scared is, you and I have said for the last couple of years that the Cubs and Red Sox hopefully will make it to the World Series together at some point. It's looking like because that window is open right now with young studs.
Yep.
It's looking like that window is still open for them to meet. And now I'm nervous because the Red Sox have won the World Series every single time they've been in it, at least in 2004. So I would ask you, who do you believe would win, and when do you think will match up? But I already know what that answer I think would be.
Yeah.
But the Cubs have also won the World Series
You're right.
the last time they've been in it, so I don't know. I'm still waiting for that
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. It changes year to year. It depends on the team. I was hopeful every single year since the Cubs have been better now. I've said I can't wait or I hope it's going to be Red Sox Cubs. Uh, I mean, if they met this year, I would say the Red Sox would have won.
Yeah, and
Uh,
to be honest, especially when they got knocked out in the way our season ended, I thought you guys would won it in 4 or 5 games. Ended up being 5 games. So
yeah,
congrats again to you guys.
thank you. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I don't think unless the Cubs were like unbelievably the better team, I'd probably still stick with my bias and say, yeah, the Red Sox will win. But I'd say, oh man, I'm hoping within 5 years that happens.
Me too.
And
We definitely have to catch a game for sure.
yeah, because that brings me to the final piece about that. Just that's one of my best memories with you, just being able to go to Fenway and watch the Cubs Sox. Obviously, I ended up on the better side of that coin because
Both
the Red Sox
times.
won 2 games, but it was cool to have you visit my hometown, Concord, out at the sea. There you go.
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
And yeah, so it was awesome. I'll remember that one forever. So that was cool.
Exactly, and that was just a regular season game. So imagine it, like you said, in a postseason. And to think, you're a pretty good trash talker. I'll say that.
Yep.
So it makes it that much more fun. But yeah, from what I'm hearing is that you definitely sound sanguine about your team's chances of ever winning a World Series against the Cubs. And for right now, I'd agree. But we'll see what the offseason has in store.
We
So
will
the
see.
last, what was that?
I said we will see.
Yep. And so, wrapping up here, again, I want to remind our listeners the quote of the week is again brought by 4-time world champion alpine ski racer Lindsey Vaughn. And that is life changes very quickly in a very positive way if you let it. Again, life changes very quickly in a very positive way if you let it. So, remembering how our thoughts and feelings, kind of like CBT work that Dylan and I did back in our day, um, remembering how our thoughts really do affect whether that be our behavior or feelings. So allowing positivity in our life, or continuing to allow that if you are somebody that does think optimistically or really focus on positive psychology or what have you, letting that be your guide to hopefully a better day and a better rest of the week. So, again, I'm sorry we did not have Oprah on again. We had Dylan, but
Yeah.
maybe one day we'll get Oprah on, maybe next time. But next week, or I should say this Sunday, we'll have on a guest, my old buddy Ryan Mix, who's a Cubs fan. We'll talk about interview the Cubs season, how much of a disappointment it was, get his thoughts on what has to be done this upcoming off season, the issues that need to be touched on, and just an overall reflection too on 2016. We got 2018 today with our buddy Dylan, and we'll really reflect on what it was like to be a Cubs fan 2 years ago. Before we end today's show, Dylan, do you have any final thoughts or any last things you want to share?
Well, I just wanted to thank you for having me on. I mean, I think this is awesome what you're doing and very cool. And I hope that your listeners are getting some stuff out of it. And very much looking forward to the next time I come on. Hopefully after the Patriots
Okay.
take down the Eagles in this upcoming Super Bowl.
Are you
So
sure you want them to match up again?
yeah, maybe not after the Golden Tate acquisition, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, Tom's playing against time right now, and it's eventually going to come up, even though he's doing everything in his power to avoid that. But yeah, no, great stuff with this podcast. This is awesome, and great to catch up with you. I know we hadn't talked in a bit of time, so it's really cool to stay in touch. And yeah, I guess that's the one thing I'd leave people with is always trying to reach out to people that care that care for you or matter to you, because when life kicks into gear and you start going every day to work and have the dailiness, you can get lost with some of your friends. So it's always great to catch up. So keep that in mind and always try to reach out if you haven't talked to somebody in a while.
Likewise, my friend. And that's one thing I learned this summer is that good people are hard to come by. And because of that, I like to get people on like you that were great to me and continue to be great to me since being out here on the East Coast. Obviously, as you know, it's the South. It's not too easy to meet great people. So, again, I want to thank you for taking this time to be on here to really catch up. Because really, this is for people who are listening. This is really our first time being able to talk on the phone in a long time, and so you're witnessing a conversation between two friends that's been a minute. And again, I know obviously I'm not married, but I can understand that it can be challenging, especially with work, having long days. So just you taking the time, you ignoring your wife to hopefully she can forgive you and tell her to blame me for that.
I'll
But
do that.
seriously, thank you for the advice you shared too, getting us into your world with your career. And you actually were the first person. This is the first episode where I touched on a mental skill. So
Nice.
I would definitely, the way you articulated everything was so intriguing and got me even motivated to work on it with some people here at my job. And I look forward to jumping on another skill, either that we worked on or one that you continue to work on today during the next time you're on.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Dylan, you're the man, Dylon. And
Yep. You too, Nadizzy. And uh, yeah, actually, the very, very last thing I'll say, getting back to the first time we ever met in April, way back when, I had your name in my phone as Nadu the whole time we were at Springfield without putting your last name in, because I didn't know what it was on that first weekend. I couldn't pronounce it, but I finally was able to Izuebwinem and get it down.
oh, he did it.
And I felt
Oh,
and
oh man,
that,
I wish I had the clap machine or the playback clap autoplay because that you did it right there. I've never heard you say my last name, so to hear it the first time correctly, like
yeah.
that deserves. I'm gonna come up with a phrase or some type of coin for on the podcast for people that just scream or piss excellence because that was it right there.
Yeah, well, I appreciate having me on, and be good, brother, and we'll talk soon, all right?
That's right. And until next time, everyone, peace, love, and may your skills be with you. God bless and Kamesia, which again means goodbye or later in Igbo. Goodbye.